Hi, I'm Ash, and I'm one of the artists who's going to be working on the Our Place in the World Arts Award Challenge program. And today I'm going to be talking about the world of beatboxing. A little bit about what is beatboxing, a little bit about how to do it, some of the techniques, and basically just trying to give you guys a little bit of resource so you can go away and just try and practice on your own and just kind of learn these skills by yourself. You don't really need any equipment. You just need a pen and maybe writing something down. And that's it really. So basically I'm going to show you today a little bit about the foundations and then some of the techniques. So just going to take you back to some of the beginning time in beatboxing. So right back in the 1980s, beatboxing started in America, and it basically looks at electronic sounds from the mouth, but also looking at different kinds of vocal percussion as well. The name itself actually comes from this machine which were called drum machines back in the day of the 1980s. And some of them were maybe one called the CR78, and also a really classic one was called a Roland TR-808. And this one was a really iconic one because this is where we really started to use drum beats in electronic music. Okay, and that's where its name kind of came from, is that we took the name from this. This was called a beatbox, and we started using it with the replication with our mouths. And this is here is actually an image of one. I'm going to play you a little short video. You might hear the audio of the first time some of the people were hearing a TR-808, okay? So as you can see here, it's been programmed, these buttons here, and then up here it's talking about whether it's a kick drum, a hi-hat, or a snare. So that was the TR-808. We're in the 1980s, and we've just come up with the term beatboxing. And here are some of the kind of things that we're going to look at. So these are kind of a little bit sciencey, these terms, but I like to use these because it helps us kind of break up the difference between what kind of sounds we're making, and specifically this one called plosives. So plosives are quite explosive sounds with our mouth, and they're bilabial, which means they're both of our lips. Okay, and they're often ba, ta, ga. A fricative, this is quite a constant sound, and this might be whether we do a longer sound like a f, tss, sh. And also we might do something like a click with our tongue. And we might do also different kind of sounds like oscillations, which is also quite a scientific term of vibrations continuously. Okay, so there's kind of some of the kind of sounds that we're going to make. And here, when we start looking at the origins of where these sounds come from, this is a classic drum kit. And here it breaks up some of the sounds that we're going to learn today. One of these is a kick drum, and this is this big one right in the middle here. And this is often replaced by a B or a bump. The second one is a hi-hat, and this is a closed or an open hi-hat with two cymbals together. That's this one over here. And that's going to be our tss sound, kind of a little bit more of a constant sound, a bit more of a fricative. And the snare is this one here with the white drum head on it. And that one makes this k sound, okay? So that's kind of a combination of a plosive k and a sh fricative sound, okay? So we're going to go into a little bit of a focus now of what we think these sounds really are and how we do them. So I like to think of my mouth as being about how we use it with air. So we push air out quite specifically with beatboxing. And the kick drum is this boo sound. I kind of like to start there. It sounds a little bit silly, but this boo sound is something we already make. You know, we can already do that. Boo, boo, boo. And what I like to do is focus on that boo sound. So I take all of the ooh, the ooh sound, take all of that off, and just get this sharp plosive sound of. So bring that air right to the front of the mouth. So you can see. And it's all about really, really pushing that air out quite tight. Okay? And it's all about intensity. So if you're doing it quite loose, It might not work. You might even put a little bit of a vibration or an oscillation on the end. So what I want you to do now is just try that after me. Okay, so that's our kick sound. Our next sound is our hi-hat, and that was where we said our T and our S. It was our two cymbals put together. And this was a little bit like a snake. So again, a sound that we already do. So what I've done is I've put a focus on the T at the beginning. But I don't want it to be that long. So make sure you've got your closed teeth. Tongue to the front. At the top of the mouth, I want you to shorten that hiss and add the T right at the beginning. Again, it's all about that intensity. Okay, so that's an open hi-hat. What we do when we put the two cymbals together, we get a closed hi-hat. And this one is this T sound. Okay, so now we can put those two together. You might get a or we might get okay? So now what we can do is we can sort of start mixing up those closed and open hi-hat patterns, and we could get so we can starting to get that sort of feel of the drummer. So drummer have to be or something really simple. Try and get a little bit of a swing into your hi-hat patterns, because they're the ones that kind of give your beats a little bit of flavor, okay? So give those hi-hats a little bit of a swing to it. Okay, so now we're going to look at the snare. Often kind of one of the hardest ones to get quite intense and right, because it's got two of our sounds in it. It's got our k and it's got our sh together. So we kind of put those together, we get k and sh. And it's a little bit like turning on a big radio. So it's what we want to kind of get is that long sound, but we want to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, so it's the hit and the resonance. Okay, so let's just try that. So you could shorten it, or you could just do a little, or you could do a little bit of a different sound, which might be an inward snare. And these are quite difficult and takes a little bit of time to practice. But what it does is it means that we can breathe and take in air whilst beatboxing. So how I like to do the inward snare is by going, so practice going, just watch so you don't hurt yourself there, and just try and add in that cut on it. And what I like to do is practice trying to get the two almost the same. Okay? And then the other one that's quite nice is this putting the p at the beginning. And a little bit like someone might be lying. Psh, 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 psh. Okay, so now we've got all those different sounds. Let me just go over that again. We've got the ksh, ksh, or we've got a k, or you might even do an inward. Or you might do a psh, 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 psh. Okay, so we've got all those. Now what we want to do is we want to put all those together. And this is how this is how I like to write out the beats, is that we've got our kick drum, our hi-hat, and our snare, and I've just put a hi-hat on the end there. And this is in what we like to call 4/4 timing, okay, 4 beats. And this is how we do it. It just goes. So I started with a closed hi-hat, and then I changed it to an open hi-hat. So you could play around with your hi-hats. This is a really classic beat, and it's a really good way to start basically learning the fundamentals, because what happens is once you've got this, you can start experimenting with these sounds and basically changing them up. So just practicing the fundamentals right at the beginning will really help, because then you can start changing them up, adding in some more hi-hats, maybe start changing the beat around a little bit. What I'd like to do after this, once I'd learnt this, was I'd like to do a fill. Now, a fill often be what a drummer might do on the 4th time round that I do something, and then I'll change it up. So if you listen what happens here. So on my 4th one, that was when I was really starting to switch it up and add in a little bit of my own little personality. And that's what a drummer might do on a gig if they're playing with a band. Trying to put this into a context. If you were beatboxing with other people, there might be a rapper involved. There might even be some singers involved. There might be a bass guitar or guitar. We want to try to follow and be rock solid with this because we're the foundations of the beat and the track, if you like. So once you've got this, practice that beat, write that one down, and then what you can start doing is really, really mixing these up basically. And you can kind of start doing this, which is how I like to write down some beats if I'm experimenting. So I'll just put a grid in of 4. This is quite really at the start of when I was beatboxing. I was adding in drum sounds straight away. So I had, but then I wanted to kind of change that up and I've switched the t to a b. So I got, okay? So now, as a challenge, what I'd really like you to do is just draw that grid out and then just start really experimenting, swapping the letters around with those, and then really have a look at playing around with the order. It's really great to be able to start with the b, the kick drum, because often a beat will always start with. So it's a really good way to start, okay? So once you've done that, you can now start, you're writing your own beats, so you're away, okay? So what I'm going to do is leave you that to practice, and I want you to write out the rest of these beats, and then we're going to start looking at maybe writing some lyrics and putting them over the top of them, okay? So practice this, go over your beats, maybe start practicing them together, and then just start looking at what you might do with the freestyle, where you get to the point where you're not even thinking about what order the beats are going to come in. So I might start. So just start making them up, start getting, having fun with it, and even start playing around with how many beats go into where. You might put a double in, so you might get, so you could put a double T in one. Okay, so have a practice at that, writing them down, and just practice them anywhere. You don't need a microphone. I'm just using the microphone now to help record it, but when I was practicing, I could do it anywhere, okay? So that's how we learn our beats.